My name is John R. Salter, Jr. This is my story, and it's real.
John Salter, Jr. is the head of Indian Studies at the University of North Dakota and holds a master's degree in sociology. The son of a Native American and a second-generation Scot, he was a human rights activist who fought for civil rights throughout the Deep South. He was also director of Catholic social justice activities for the Rochester, New York Diocese. He has been honored with numerous awards, among them the Martin Luther King Jr. Award, presented by the governor of North Dakota. But all of his knowledge and experience could not explain what was about to happen to him this day. John Salter and his son left their home in North Dakota for a speaking tour in the Deep South.
My then 23-year-old son and I took off, pointed toward Mississippi and New Orleans.
Since I've been about 13, I've traveled with my father all over the country. And one of the things we've always done is pick the straightest shot, you know, from point A to Z.
However, on this trip, John Salter, for reasons he could not explain, took a route which was completely illogical. Intending to stay on Route 61, John Salter turned off the main highway onto a less traveled road, heading in the wrong direction.
Around that very point, both my son and I were hit gently by double amnesia. For the next more than 60 miles, we remembered nothing. At about 10 minutes of 8, almost an hour and a half later, we emerged from the double amnesia. It was dark. I was going down a hill. I can recall very clearly the lights of the pickup on the highway, the sound of the engine and the tires flowing into my broadening, expanding consciousness.
Check the map. We're turned around heading towards Madison.
But that's impossible. How did we get here?
I don't know. Been off course for over an hour. I can't remember anything.
Neither can I.
That evening, you know, when we stopped in Bettendorf and we went to that restaurant, there were several police officers, several men wearing hats with FBI labels on them, like they had been part of some kind of search team or something. And I remember feeling incredibly guilty, as if we were a couple of bank robbers or outlaws. And we hadn't done anything wrong, of course. You know, we don't even go over 55.
What's happening to us?
I don't know. How could we both not remember anything for over an hour?
Dad, why are we whispering? Why do we feel like we did something wrong?
If this were the Navajo country, I'd believe this to be witchcraft.
We drove down the highway, and we were listening to music and kind of talking quietly. And then we saw the light coming towards us. It was glittering, it was shining, it came towards us. It was unusual, it was fast, and it had my complete attention. I couldn't look at anything else.
It was enveloped in a kind of energy field which added up to the most exquisite, shimmering silvery thing that I've ever seen in my life.
Dad, that was a UFO, wasn't it?
What else could it have been? Remember Betty and Barney Hill?
No.
Well, they were a real responsible couple. They were picked up by a UFO and didn't even know it.
Do you think we were picked up?
I don't know, son.
To the Salters, this extraordinary sighting somehow seemed connected to the missing time and odd feelings of the previous night.
I also saw this as a very friendly kind of an appearance, a sort of a adios or a hasta luego.
But the Salters were still mystified. The real significance of what happened was about to unfold.
Dad, I feel like something really strange has happened to us.
I feel that way, too.
I know this sounds weird, but I wish they'd come visit us again.
As they continued their journey, the Salters searched their memories for explanations. What really occurred during that missing time? Why did the UFO appearance feel so familiar to them? And why did they have such feelings of longing for something they could not identify? In a series of recall flashbacks, the lost time slowly came into focus.
I recall thinking to myself, they look like children. Up on the bumper, looking in. They look just like little kids. Standing in the shadows was another humanoid. This man is tall as I am, 6 feet. He is half human, half humanoid, a half-breed, so to speak. I felt a very close bond immediately with this tall figure that stepped from the shadows. And at one point, I stumbled and fell and was cushioned and prevented from hitting the ground by what I'm convinced is some sort of telekinetic psychic force generated by the humanoids. Into a small room with curved walls. The atmosphere was rather Spartan in nature.
I remember the feeling of laying in a chair, and it was like being in a dentist's office because I was aware of what was happening, but I couldn't move. I couldn't move my face, I couldn't move my body. I wasn't strapped down, but I was immobilized in some way.
One of the things done initially to me after a cursory medical exam was placing of a very small implant up my right nostril and beyond. This was a painless procedure, and we believe that it affects the pituitary gland, one of the endocrine glands. Immediately after that, an injection was made in the vicinity of the thyroid gland. And following that, there was a massive injection into the upper central chest, the thymus gland.
There would be like a zipping sensation, almost like tiny electrical shocks. I've talked to people who've had tattoos, and they've described that as being similar.
My feeling was one of great friendliness, very much at ease. Everyone, all through this experience, was very pleasant.
In the months that followed, John Salter began to notice changes to his body. His fingernails, which he normally clipped every 3 weeks, had to be clipped once a week. His hair began growing more rapidly. His sparse eyebrows began to thicken, and his facial wrinkles began to disappear.
I now had developed a very strong need for protein, meat and fish. At the same time, an odd craving for things like green peas.
A 25-year-old scar suddenly faded. Salter had very little body hair, but now found it growing all over his body. Before the UFO encounter, Salter smoked a pound of pipe tobacco a week.
I smoked like an Arizona smelter. But in the middle of May 1989, I stood in my office and realized that I had gone 24 hours without smoking anything. And I stopped smoking and have remained a non-smoker without suffering a single physical or psychological twinge. No twinges of any kind. I recall that we walked through the woods, downhill, back to the pickup, and I felt an extraordinary sense of sadness at the fact that we were parting. There is no way that I can adequately describe the intense sadness that I felt. And then the message came that we will all see one another again in another place, in another time.
These have been but 3 of hundreds of reported UFO encounters. It's available to the public. One thing remains clear. A growing number of people believe extraterrestrial life exists, and still others believe Earth is being visited regularly. If so, where are they from? What do they want? These questions remain unanswered.